So what happens when one of your biggest trade deals suddenly puts you on a collision course with, well, your closest ally? That's exactly what's happening right now. We're going to dive into this high-stakes economic spat between Canada and China, a spat that has the United States threatening a full-blown trade war.
I mean, it really all kicked off with this bombshell threat straight from the White House. A 100% tariff. You heard that right. That's not just some warning shot. That's basically the opening salvo in a potential trade war. So the big question is, what on earth did Canada do to provoke a response this dramatic?
And just like that, this thing has spiraled into a full-blown North American standoff. We're talking about a genuine continental clash here, and believe me, it has massive implications for the future of trade as we know it.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. The friction really kicked into gear back in early 2026. Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, takes a trip to Beijing. He comes back with this new economic partnership, right? Well, Washington took one look at it and immediately saw it as a direct challenge. And that's where things got complicated.
All right, so what is actually in this deal that's causing all the drama? Let's peel back the layers and take a look inside this new partnership. Its official name, by the way, is the Canada-China Roadmap.
Now, the first thing you gotta know is that Canadian officials are being super specific about the language here. They keep saying this is a roadmap, not a full-blown free trade agreement, or FTA. So think of it less like an open highway for trade and more like, well, a roadmap to fix specific potholes in the relationship after years of tension. It's not a wide-open pact.
So, what's on this roadmap? Well, it covers a few really key areas. For starters, they're revitalizing a joint trade commission to handle any disputes that pop up. They're also planning to boost cooperation in big sectors like agriculture and clean tech, and they're going to set up regular meetings to keep the conversation going. It's really a structured plan to build deeper economic ties.
But okay, here's the part that really made Washington's ears perk up. As part of this roadmap, Canada agreed to slash its tariff on a certain number of Chinese-made electric vehicles. And when I say slash, I mean it. They took it from a totally prohibitive 100% all the way down to just 6.1%. For the North American auto industry, this is a huge deal.
And this wasn't a one-way street. The benefits definitely flowed both ways. In return for the EV deal, China made a massive cut of its own. They slashed the tariff on Canadian canola seed from a crippling 84% down to just 15%. I mean, for Canadian farmers who absolutely depend on that market, this is a massive, massive lifeline.
Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question, right? Why would Canada risk making its most important trading partner this angry? Well, the answer lies in the strategic economic pivot, one that's actually been years in the making.
Just look at this. This chart tells you everything you need to know. Canada's economy has this one huge vulnerability. More than 2/3, over 66% of all its exports go to just one single country, the United States. Now, if you're sitting in Ottawa, that kind of dependency looks like a major, major strategic risk.
So when you see that chart, this whole deal with China starts to make a lot more sense, doesn't it? This isn't some random move. It's a very deliberate diversification strategy. The thinking is, by opening up doors to China's massive market of 1.4 billion people, Canada can build more economic resilience and, hopefully, be a little less vulnerable to the policy swings of any single partner, no matter how friendly.
But Washington? Yeah, they weren't buying that whole diversification argument, not for a second. The reaction from across the border was incredibly swift. And let's just say, it was fiery.
Okay, so the core of the disagreement really boils down to this. On one hand, the U.S. is deeply worried that China is going to use Canada as a kind of backdoor or a drop-off port to flood the American market with its goods and get around U.S. tariffs. On the other hand, Canada is pushing back, saying, hey, hold on, this isn't a full FTA. We are still 100% committed to our North American Trade Pact, the USMCA.
And this wasn't just the president talking either. The threat was echoed by the U.S. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, who made it crystal clear that Washington is fully prepared to start imposing penalties if they feel like their trade policies are being undermined by this deal.
So, what happens now? Where does this all go? Because this is so much bigger than just a squabble between two neighbors. This has huge, sweeping implications for global trade and, honestly, for the international balance of power.
When you really get down to it, this whole situation is a major test case on the world stage.
It puts countries like Canada, these so-called middle powers, in a really tough spot, forcing them to navigate the incredibly fierce rivalry between the US and China. It also throws a wrench into global supply chains for critical things like EVs, and it risks a massive disruption to one of the most deeply integrated economies on the entire planet.
And all of that leaves us with the one central question that hangs over this entire conflict. Is Canada's diversification strategy a bold, smart move for its own economic independence, or is it a reckless gamble with its single most important ally? Honestly, there's no easy answer, but whatever it is, it's going to shape the future of North America for years to come.